Hello and welcome to a new video. Welcome to my living room and welcome to what are you?
Rick.
This is Rick. And you are what sort of...
We've been friends.
No, we haven't. Friends is not...
We've been associates.
It's still a little familiar.
We have known each other.
There we go.
We've been aware of each other's existence for about 30 odd bloody long
years. Anyway, enough of him. He's not really here to talk and he's not here to look pretty. So this video is a little bit different. What it is I've got some pretty equipment here. So we are going to record a podcast. Yes, I'm sorry. He's going to be here. Two reasons why I'm recording this for YouTube. One, haven't had a chance to record a video to go out, so I can use this one. Two, it's for those who like to look at, visual of me, and they're grateful for what they look like. And three, because I'm using new equipment, as you see, for my podcast, if it doesn't work, because we've literally not tried it, I can just edit this video as an audio and upload it. So this is going to be the podcast. Me and Richard are going to be chatting. So sit around, or get yourself a cup of coffee first. Sit back, have a hobnob, and enjoy. Well, hello and welcome to my new podcast. My name's Dale Charman. If you don't know who I am, I'm an idiot with a camera. I have a small YouTube channel, Dale Charman Travels, where, well, believe it or not, I travel. I've got this podcast as well, which I'm starting today. I have a guest with me, which I will introduce to you, I suppose at some point. But yeah, just a little bit about me, if you don't know who I am. Yeah, I've got the YouTube channel, but also have a full-time job. I'm a train operator, or train driver, if you like, for London Underground. I drive on the Piccadilly line. So this podcast, I'm not really sure of a name yet. I think it's probably going to be the Dale Charman Podcast. I'm going to leave it at that, but I'll confirm that at a later date. It's not all going to be travel related. It's going to be quite a lot of travel related things. But it'll just be whenever I've got something to chat rubbish with you about. So I hope you enjoy it. This is my first ever podcast. I'm using some nice new equipment. I'm also recording this for my YouTube channel. So if you wish to check it out and see how attractive I'm, it's all there. So what we're going to talk about today on this first video, or first podcast, sorry. So I have my friend Richard with me. Say hello, Richard.
Hello.
Oh, I was waiting for him to say hello, Richard. Disappointing. Now, Richard and I have been friends for it's not quite 30 years. Since the late 90s.
Something like that, yeah.
It's been a long while. Yeah.
Get less for murder.
Yes, and I may murder you yet. Now, Richard is staying with me currently. He has been living in the US for almost 20 years. He's moved back to the UK. You've been back about 3 weeks, haven't you, roughly?
Yeah. Yep.
So he's staying with me currently whilst he looks for, somewhere to live. So what I thought might be interesting for this first podcast is we're going to have a little bit of a chat with Richard about his life, of what it was like moving over to the US and even moving back. Now, just to keep Richard's private life private, I'm not going to go into everything about his private life because that's a little unfair on him, but I will discuss things with him. So, Richard, let me move this. There we go. Hello and welcome to the first podcast. It's awful to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. It's terrible to be here.
Well, that's what I like to hear. So, Richard, I'm not going to go into too much detail about us. We've known each other a long while. Mm-hmm. So, let's just get straight into it. So, you moved to the US of A in, if my memory serves me, was it late 2007, early 2008?
It's around about middle of 2008.
Middle of 2008, okay. And what part of sunny or rainy
California
of the USA did you move to?
California.
Right. So you moved to California.
Yep.
California's a big place. Mm-hmm. Would you like to narrow it down a little bit more?
It was in the Bay Area, a city called Richmond, which was about 10, 15 miles away from the city of Oakland, which you may all know about, which was across the bay from San Francisco.
Yeah, so if you're not someone who travels, near San Francisco would have been the easiest answer out of him. So I already apologise on his behalf. But yes, I did visit you out in Oakland.
Yes, you did.
Just outside. Is it actually across the bay? I know it's across some water, but it's across the bay.
Yeah.
In Oakland. So how long was you there for, roughly?
In California?
Yeah.
About 3 or 4 years.
So I came out to visit you 2009.
Mm-hmm.
I had an awful time because I left my then girlfriend's passports and money and everything on one of the airport trolleys. Do you remember that?
Good job, yes.
Yes, and we got a phone call from the police to say, yes, we've got your wallet, but strangely your $500 is not in there.
That's not surprising for America.
No. But anyway, we won't talk about that. So you went over to the US.
Yep.
Did you find anything that was a huge shock? I tell you what, before you answer that, how many times had you been to the US before? Because I know you wasn't a huge traveller.
I never travelled outside the UK.
I thought you'd been to the US on a couple of visits before then.
Well, yeah, I had to. I went once. Yeah, so I went to the US a couple of times, but they were for like a few days.
Yeah.
So meeting my then to be wife, and then getting married, and then she came over here, and then we left and returned to America for various reasons. I'm not getting into.
Yeah.
So apart from that, I hadn't really travelled outside. Well, I'd done weekend trips to Europe, France, Spain, stuff like that, everybody does, but whatever.
I suppose in comparison to the travel I've done over the last 3 or 4 years,
Nothing.
You've done nothing. So, okay, as someone then who was not a huge traveller, did you, and we're looking at maybe the first couple of 3 weeks, maybe the first month of living over there, was there anything that really, whether it shocked you, whether for the good, the bad, or the indifference, was there any culture shocks? Okay, luckily they speak English, or sort of, their version of English.
Kind of, yeah. People were very indifferent to you. I expected to be, and this didn't happen till much later on, to be a sore thumb being English with an English accent, and especially in Richmond, a white person, because it's very much an African American city.
Okay.
But there was an awful lot of indifference, and that was maybe the narcissist in me. I was like, oh, I'm not special.
Well, I could have told you that, and I thought I'd spent many years doing so.
But you see on TV, you see a lot of people on TV, and you hear various people, and they're like, oh my God, you're English. Say something in English. And it wasn't until we moved from Richmond to Oakland a couple of months that the locals, also obviously Oakland is also a African American main city, or it was back then, and the little neighborhood I lived in, everyone was blown away that this white guy spoke in a different accent, and it helped out quite a few times.
Okay.
Other things, not really that much. The money was different. That was kind of exciting to play around with. But there wasn't that much that was a surprise.
Because for me, and obviously I've been to the US many a times, and I still find the US different in the respects that they speak our language. So, you don't feel quite out of place as an English speaker, but there's still a lot of differences, because obviously, especially California and Florida, where I've been quite a lot, you've got a lot of Spanish, Mexican influences. So all of a sudden, there's a lots of what we would class as foreign words, restaurants and things that maybe we don't notice over here. We wouldn't so much have over here. That's the way I see it.
I didn't notice at all. Maybe I just blended in a bit better.
Yeah.
Then it was new things. Things like temperature, it wasn't in Celsius anymore, it was Fahrenheit, and so I just realised that 80 degrees Fahrenheit, this is what this feels like, it's freaking hot, or whatever. The food, going to taquerias and buying burritos and stuff like that you don't get so much over here, it was just another thing that it was just going to a restaurant and ordering that stuff, and this is what a burrito is. And it's another thing that I learned very quickly over there is, nobody tells you what to do. Nobody guides you. Nobody tells you how to eat things. When I was brought up, my parents told me you have to use a knife and fork, you have to do this and the other. And I carried that on through my adulthood. But over there, if you want to eat a burrito with your knife and fork, you want to eat a pizza with a knife and fork, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So everything's different, and you just have to. And I just kind of went with the flow, and like, okay, so now there's a certain amount of freedom. I don't have to live by my social rules that I had in the UK. And if you sit there and eat something, back then it was maybe a little frowned upon, but now it's like it didn't matter. So it wasn't any big thing. So appropriation, moving into that environment was very easy.
Huh. Good. Shame you had to come back, really. So now, obviously, it's a pleasure to have you. Obviously. So how long was you out there before you had to get a job?
There were about 3 years
before you worked. So we won't go into all the whether it's the politics of English people working over there or what needs to be done to get working visas and everything. We'll sort of skip over all that because it's just complicated, especially more in recent times, which again we'll skip over because I'm sure I can offend somebody. So your first job, what was your first job?
A security officer.
Security officer. What sort?
In a high-rise in San Francisco. So I was working in the lobby.
So be high-rise as in flats, offices?
No, a high-rise building which was offices in downtown.
I'm saying flats, it'd be apartments, wouldn't it? But
yeah.
Anyway, but it was it was a commercial office
building. It was all
building.
Commercial building, yeah.
So I've got to ask, I've seen things like Die Hard. I know he wasn't a security officer. And I've seen lots of films and programmes where there is always this security guard who saves the day. So first of all, I'm sort of guessing I know the answer to this. Did you ever save the day, and did you carry a gun?
No.
Oh, well, that's the end of that.
As a non-US citizen, I was not allowed to carry a gun.
Would you have liked to have done?
No.
Oh, that's boring.
No, I don't want to carry a gun. I don't want to have that responsibility or risk. Because knowing me, I'd probably shoot myself before I shot the other person.
Yeah, that's about right.
No, so as security officers, and I'm sure it's the same over here as it is over there, it's observe and report. And that means if there is someone wandering around with a gun, you hide and you observe and you report what happens.
So what you're telling me is TV... And I'm saying mainly Hollywood has lied to me.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. And if you're a really good security officer, you don't see anything. You
nearly swore then, didn't you?
I did.
You
yes.
did. We're trying not to swear because then it's less editing for me. Excuse me. So okay. So you wasn't allowed to carry a gun. Did any of the other? Was there any security within your building specifically that did? Okay.
No. A lot of the. Commercial office buildings didn't carry guns back then because the tenants didn't want it.
Okay.
There were a few which had banks in them. They had a special armed security force that would be there, and then there was always the police and stuff like that. That was who would carry the guns. I'm
kind of disappointed, if I'm honest with you. I do apologise.
But to be honest with you, as we were security in that building, it wasn't security. It was more of a receptionist. People would come in, you book them in, you send them up in the elevators or whatever you did.
Yeah. So you were just, I was going to say a glorified receptionist in uniform, but that sounds demeaning to receptionists. And I don't mean to demean anybody.
When it comes to me, yeah.
Yes. So how long did you do that for? Roughly?
Probably about 3-4 years.
I do remember when I came out to see you in 2009. I caught the BART. If you don't know what the BART is, it's the Bay Area Rapid Transit System. Best way I can explain it, if you're from the UK, very similar to the Docklands Light Railway. Bigger, as in longer, but that's the best way I can describe that. Just pointless me asking, but I kind of want to know. I seem to recall that the BART station was direct to your building. Was that? Mm-hmm. I was right.
Yeah, it was one of the I think it was the only one in San Francisco that had a connection to the BART station.
Can you remember what the BART station was called without mentioning the building, or is it too close to
Sansom Street.
Samson Street?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. That would be now.
It was across. It was 1 block away, maybe 2 blocks away from the main Market Street station.
Okay. Is that Powell and? Is it Market and Powell?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's where, if you're unsure, San Francisco, you've probably seen the streetcars, even if you've never been. And Powell and Market, or whatever it was called, is where the cable cars would go on, and they'd push them around on basically a turntable. There is actually a video on my channel of that. It's not the best video I've done because I didn't have all my equipment, but yeah, just watch that out. I just wanted to mention that because we think of San Francisco, think of the streetcars.
Yeah, and the Powell Market turntable that they had, the BART station was across the main road, across the other side, which I believe was opposite where they make the sourdough bread.
I'll take your word for it. I'm pretty sure there's several entrances to that one, because I'm sure that's where I got off when I last stayed there a couple of years back. But
that was the nearest one to me that I would use if I couldn't, because our station the access to our station would shut at around about 7 o'clock.
Okay. So. I'm with you. I mean, that's sort of going off on a tangent. It's more, do I remember things correctly? And, just telling you all that I've travelled to, well, at least San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So, anything else that you think is interesting about your time in California before we move on? No.
Not really, no. In a word, no. I mean, by the time I was working and walking around and living in America, I was like, this is life now. This is what I'm doing.
It's home. I know you did some of the touristy things when we came over to visit. Mm-hmm. So, you've got Lombard Street.
Yep.
We did that. Obviously, Golden Gate Bridge we did. The
Pier 39.
Pier 39. What's after Pier 39? Where the cable cars go. We was only talking about it the other day. And I said Fisherman's Wharf.
Fisherman's Wharf.
Sorry,
yes.
I had to think about that. And of course, if you go and you're a child like me, you've got to go to Nob Hill and take a photo of anything that says Nob Hill on, because that's just... Do you not remember me jumping out of the car to take photos? I think it was of a laundrette, Nob Hill. Anyway, let's keep this family friendly.
And that's actually quite an important street in San Francisco. It's very historic. I don't know why, because I never really paid that much attention. It was there, and I lived and I walked around it and stuff. But Nob Hill and the Polk area of San Francisco are some of the old parts of San Francisco. Yeah,
I mean, it's probably the nicer parts of the touristy areas is probably the way I could describe it.
Yeah.
So overall, how did you like living in the San Francisco area?
I liked it. I mean, I spent most of my time on the other side of the bay in Oakland, because that's where I lived.
Yeah.
And that was an awesome place to live. I mean, we had street parties.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of knew everybody. It helped because I was white. I spoke with a funny accent.
You still do.
I was generally harmless, and I had my child at the time, and that helped a lot. But it was a nice...
I'll be honest, when I came to Oakland, I wouldn't say I didn't feel safe, but I wouldn't walk around on my own. But I think maybe it's because I don't know the area.
You didn't go to the bad areas. You didn't go onto International Boulevard. That was a place where literally they did in the National Lampoon movies, you roll up your windows and you don't stop.
Yeah.
That was a big gang area, and multiple gangs were down that street. I used to drive down it because I didn't care, but you had to be wary.
I suppose same as anywhere, parts of London or Peterborough where I live. Obviously, I live in the nice part.
And obviously, downtown Oakland was being, they call it, gentrified a lot more.
Yeah,
business was moving over from San Francisco because it was cheaper.
I remember going, and it would have been somewhere within Oakland. You would have been at work, so it would have been with your other half at the time. We went down to one of what we would call a high street. You had the Goodwill, you had the sort of is it polite to say hippie coffee shops at the time? That kind of, and all vintage second-hand shops and all that sort of thing. Not my cup of tea, a bit too arty for me. I'm not educated and cultured enough for that. But yeah, it was very different from other areas, like around the BART station or around where you lived. But
Yeah.
I know where you lived was residential. It was very different.
I mean, I think you went to Berkeley.
May
So
well
we
have
were
been.
kind of, where we lived, we were in the Berkeley, Oakland, El Cerrito, what they call the triangle, where you kind of hit each of those. And we're just south of the college, north of Oakland City, and to the right of El Cerrito, which was the nicer area.
Okay.
The posher area. Pixar Studios is down there. Was like half a mile walk away from us. Not that you could go in there, but it was there. So Berkeley was the hippie area, and because they had Berkeley College there.
I think Oakland generally, since I visited 2009, has come up a lot.
Yeah.
So the airport, it's been there many years, but it was I seem to remember that it was more local flights that flew in there. Now you've got international.
Right.
I don't know if there still is. Before COVID, you could get direct flights from the UK to Oakland for a lot less than you could fly into San Fran.
Did not know that.
Yeah, so I believe Norwegian, when they was expanding into the US, I believe theirs was one of the ones that went into Oakland. Because whenever I looked, it was like, well, I could fly into Oakland, or I could pay a bit more to San Fran, and I always went into San Fran. But that's
Don't know why.
another thing. Now, one thing before we move on, I know there was one thing you didn't like about California, and especially British people listening to this, are going to call you a few choice names, and probably politer than I would. What didn't you like about living in California?
The bloody weather.
Okay. What was wrong with the weather?
It was always blue skies, sunshine, bright sunshine. You maybe got a couple of weeks of rain during February. Why are you shaking your head? It's depressing. I got really, really depressed because it wasn't hot because we were by the bay. We're like a mile away from the bay, so the temperatures never got higher than like, I don't know what, 80 degrees over. It's like 22, 23 degrees, something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
and it never got that hot, but it was always mild weather, but it was just sunlight and sunshine. Now over here, you have a few days of sunshine, you moan about it, and then it rains for a couple of days, and you moan about the rain, but it's a variation, it's a change, there's always clouds. Not in bloody the Bay Area.
see, it's just typical. I don't need to tell you he's British. Whether it's raining too much, or whether it's too sunny, not happy. But it's not, I suppose some of you might go, what the hell's wrong with him? I would love it. But I suppose, like everything, you can't appreciate the nice days if you don't have some miserable days.
Right.
Although I do remember when we came over, I think it was about the February time, in 2009, and actually it would be warm one day, shorts, t-shirts, like I'm wearing now if you're watching on YouTube. Look at my sexy knees. Anyway, we'll leave that aside. But I do remember one day, I think we went and walked round Visitor Centre near the Golden Gate Bridge. Is that sounding familiar?
Yep.
And it was cold, it was dreary, it was probably about 9 to 12 degrees Celsius, because we'll do it in proper metrics, because we're English.
So when that day, it was, where we were,
I seem to think it was misty and...
That area would always, so you would get these huge fog banks that would cover the city, and they would come in off the ocean, and that's because you had the cold air of the ocean and the temperate air of the land would cause these huge fog banks, so it was always kind of misty, kind of wet there. It was always cold. The further you got away at the Presidio and out that way, and if you went out across the Golden Gate Bridge to Marin County, it would always get a lot warmer.
It was lovely over there. Again, we didn't go with you, I think it was at work, but we did go into some little... I'm going to say it was what we would class as a village over here in the UK, and it was this little stereotypical place in the US. Big houses, porches, with the rocking chairs on, and obviously every house has a flag, and you had the little village square, town square, whatever you want to call it, and you had your little shops around there, and we went into
So you went to Marin Town.
Is that what it
Marin
was?
City,
if you say so.
Yeah.
And we went into this little shop and you could try the cheeses, and then they had a barbecue, and you bought all your stuff, and everyone was just sat in like the village green, if you like, having a little bit of a picnic. Beautiful place. And for me, that was my first trip to the US. That's what I expected the US to be. So my first trip, we discussed this the other day. So when I first went to the US, I was all excited. I would have been 29. God dear, so long ago.
So long ago.
And obviously I only really watched stuff on TV. So that's the image of the US I'd got. And I was so looking forward to going over there, seeing all these big cars. Now, California being California, what does everyone drive?
They drove bloody Toyotas,
Priuses
and all the other good healthy cars.
Yeah, Mazdas, and it was quite. I was quite disappointed.
Yeah, I remember you complaining you were expecting these big old cars from the 50s. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you need to go to Cuba.
I've been to Cuba. I went. Not anyway. So we're going to do one last thing, unless you can think of anything else about California, your time there that might interest people.
I would say go. Definitely.
Well, this is what I was going to say actually. If someone went, and we'll use San Francisco because that's probably where most tourists would go to visit. What would be a must in your opinion? So we wanted to do Alcatraz, if you remember, but there was like an 8-week waiting list.
Yeah, if you're going to do stuff like, if you're going to go to Alcatraz, it's worth it. I didn't go because my then wife was like, we're not doing touristy stuff, you live here. I'm like, all right, okay.
Yeah.
But
if you can, Alcatraz worth going.
Alcatraz, but make sure you book well
Yes,
in advance,
book in
even
advance.
in the winter.
Now, we did a boat trip, didn't we?
Yeah, that was
From one of the
bay.
piers, and we went under the Golden Gate Bridge, literally just under, turn around, come back, and we basically went round Alcatraz Island just on the boat.
You went out.
That's another good way of doing it. It's about as close as you can get to Alcatraz without getting onto Alcatraz.
You can see all the graffiti writing and everything on there.
Yeah. Certainly go to Pier 39, Fisherman's Wharf, although when I was last at Fisherman's Wharf, it seemed to be basically dead from 2009 when I went, but I think COVID has done a lot to damage areas like that, and I think from the last time I went, which was probably a couple of years back, I don't think that area had recovered.
I went there last year.
Oh, okay.
About August time of last year, and it wasn't packed out with people, but it was busy, it was thriving, everything was open.
Yeah, I found a lot of things closed. I know you've got down that way, Ripley's, I think, is probably your biggest attraction, but the rest of it, just excuse me, I'm suffering with a bit of a cough. But either way, it's worth a visit.
Yeah, Fisherman's Wharf, Pier 39, the Staples.
Go and do
places.
the cable cars. And go to the Cable Car Museum. We did that, didn't we? That was interesting if you're a bit of a geek like, well, not me, him. But no, that's worth going and looking at. The museum, is it still free off the top of your head, do you know?
It wasn't.
It was free when we went.
It's free when we went by.
But that's, that's what, 16 years ago.
You got the museum, you got the Japanese tea gardens to go to. They're really
I've not
nice.
done that one. Is it what's the
Tower?
Coit Tower? I've not done Coit Tower.
That's a cool place to go. The
It looks-
observatory.
Yeah, I've not done that.
Yeah, any major place. But then
And then don't forget you got Lombard Street, as we've discussed. With if you're unsure what that is, that's I suppose a zigzag street down the hill, isn't it? Is the best way to describe it.
Bendy Street. If you're going to rent a car, do it in a car because it's
Yeah.
so much more fun. But then
And go round like Nob Hill area, those sort of places.
If you go into the city itself, you got like Soma, south of Market, and places like that. And then the financial district where you get to see all the huge
Yeah, I mean,
and stuff.
if I'm staying there, I tend to stay in the financial district area because it's just easier for hotels and getting around. Because I'm only usually there, apart from when I came to visit you, I'm only there for 2 or 3 days, so it just makes my life easier.
Yeah.
You've also got one other thing to worth visiting, and so I can't remember what it's called. So if you go down the main street, down towards the water, and you've got that, it's not actually is it a pier? And you've got little markets inside and everything, straight almost down the bottom of the hill from where you would have worked.
Yeah,
I should have really got the
They
map
call
out.
that the World Trade Center. and it's a little indoor market, and they have some really cool stuff in there.
Yeah, I mean, last time I went, it was more arty stuff, but lots of food, artisan type food, worth a walk round, even if you don't buy anything.
Be careful because it gets very busy in there.
It does. But you can then walk all the way down towards Fisherman's Wharf. It's a bit of a walk, or you've got the streetcars. So we'll leave San Francisco there.
Okay.
So, first of all, how long was you there for, did you say? I can't remember if I asked you.
About 3-4 years.
3 or 4 years. So, where did you decide to go then?
We went to the Pacific Northwest. We went up a state to Oregon.
Oregon. So you went north, and the city?
We ended up in Beaverton, which is like a suburb of Portland.
Well, I mean, so Portland would be your biggest city for this. Now, again, I did come and visit you. Actually, only twice in, so what would it have been, 17, 18 years?
Yep.
It's the only reason we've stayed friends, to be honest. Now, Portland's actually, it's kind of an interesting place. So I'm going to tell you my first thoughts on Portland. Awesome. I don't like the place, from what I saw, but at the time, so I came out to you 2018, so before COVID. And the thing about Portland that I noticed, other than the fact that you've got cannabis shops, my first experience of cannabis shops everywhere, because it's not illegal in the UK, was the homeless. They were everywhere. But what was quite funny at the time, probably
go there now.
I was going to say it's probably the same, probably worse, is you'll have these homeless people and then they live in tents, but then they would hook up TVs and things to the streetlights, and that was kind of a weird thing to see, that you're homeless and you live in a tent, but you got your priorities straight and you got your TV and such like.
A lot of these people, certainly pre-COVID, they were working and they had good jobs and stuff like that. It's just that rent is so exorbitantly high there that you couldn't afford to live in a building. So you would have a place. When I lived in San Francisco, we used to patrol the exterior of the building, and you would often see people trying to hitch up tents. And one night there was a couple, and they had their tent up with a cardboard, like a box that was a wardrobe, and they had their work clothes in there, their office clothes. I'm like, you can't stay here. They had a TV and everything hooked up to our main plugs in the building. You can't stay here. Well, we have nowhere else to go. And I was like, but they actually worked in the building for one of the big banks in the building, but they couldn't afford to live in the city or anywhere, so they were homeless, and they just.
Do you mind me asking? Sort of slightly going back. Do you remember what the house you had in Oakland, so just across from San Francisco, quite a big house, as my memory serves me.
Second oldest house on the block. It was the second house on the block.
So if we, just in terms for people listening, how many bedrooms was there? Was it three? So it's 3-bed, but I know downstairs was huge. Do you remember what you paid roughly in rent, if you don't mind sharing? And this is just to give people an idea. So this would have been from 2007, you said you was there 3 or 4 years.
I think it was about $1,400.
$1,400. So that, in today's money, if we're looking at UK pounds, would be 1,100 quid roughly. Like that. So that's actually quite cheap. The reason I mention that is because we'll discuss rent as we get through this with him, just to give you an idea. So when people moan about the cost of living in the UK,
yeah, shut up.
Although I'm kind of thinking we might have to do a separate podcast about the cost of living, actually, because I think we can fall down a rabbit hole with that one. Can. So I think that's a good idea. We'll probably do that, but we'll discuss his rent. So anyway, Portland. I didn't like Portland. I thought it was a dump, but I never actually managed to go downtown Portland. But I do remember lots of bridges, lots of roads, and, which is more important for me, certainly from my YouTube channel, lots of trains and big train yards.
So in Portland there is a huge Union Pacific Rail yard.
And that's freight, yes? Yep. So freight is king in the US. Absolutely. And again, something we'll probably discuss on a different video.
Yep. So there was a huge freight yard, and I used to go there a couple of times for my job, but the cool thing about Portland is it's cool. It's
cool as in it's a cool neighbourhood,
so
not that it's not as warm.
The tag for Portland is keep Portland weird, because it is weird. It's not really. It has what they call Pioneer Square, which has all the big Tiffany's and Macy's stores and stuff like that. But then you just go a block away and you have the weird little trinket shops or shops that sell potted plants or weird stuff.
It was for me what I would class as a bit arty-farty, which is not for me. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just too uneducated to appreciate these things.
Yes, uneducated is the word. Closed mind could be another word.
Yeah, there's loads.
Yeah.
I mean, the other way to discuss to call it is maybe it's an area for hippies trying to bring it up. That's probably I got that sort of vibe, but that was a personal thing. I might be wrong.
I mean, a lot of things was a lot of people moved up there from California anyway, and so they brought that. But it was just that Portland is its own city. It has its own government. It has a lot more relaxed rules, which is why you have a lot of homeless people and stuff.
It was terrible for homelessness when I was there.
It's just another metropolis city in America. It has its issues. It had its problems, but it's got what it beat over San Francisco was it had its little weirdness. It had its uniqueness that was much more welcoming and homely, even though the people, if you want to know the definition of passive aggressive, someone from Portland, holy cow, they can be so aggressive, but in
passive aggressive
way.
people with guns, just what you need. But maybe that's we won't, again, another rabbit hole we'll fall down.
And there was a lot more civil rights. There was a lot more activism there. So that may be another thing that you thought was rather hippie.
Maybe.
It was a lot more free to express yourself and stuff like that. A lot of people think San Francisco is, but San Francisco is very closed in, whereas
I think San Francisco
open.
is more for the gay community, still big gay area, so it may be open in some respects, but it's more geared towards that, where I think Portland, as again I would say more arty-farty, but maybe I would appreciate Portland if I went now, because since I visited you I've done a lot more travelling and I've got older.
Portland is...
But I can't see it being... Anyway, I'm not a fan of the Pacific Northwest, if I'm honest. Now, just for those of you, if you're unsure, so we talked about Portland in Oregon. The best way, if you're not really sure where it is, it's basically your nearest biggest city that most people would know would be Seattle, which was 4.5 hours away driving.
About 3.5. Yeah. North.
So Seattle, sort of almost at the top. You just come down the coast, basically, roughly. So that's really for those that are unsure where it was. So anyway, going back, so you are now in Portland. You need a job. Don't tell me the company you work for, because someone will get offended. What did you do? Can you remember?
Yeah, I worked in a lobby for a large company that did electronics.
Oh.
So,
but was you security again?
Yeah, I was security again. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Now we're in a different state. Now you've said you can't carry a gun. Was there any difference with other security officers within that were carrying guns?
Not at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Nobody wanted to carry a gun. Nobody wanted to do this, that, and the other. And we were just doing the same thing: observe and report. Hello, customers. Welcome to blah blah blah. Check you in and get you where you need to go. Then I was a roving. So this place was very high security. So doors had standing alarms on them if the door was open for more than a few seconds and stuff like that. So we'd go around and check those, and then I ended up working at the entrance gate where deliveries would come. And then there was an issue in, I think it was Israel, where somebody went and shot the place up, and then we had our sister company came in, which was armed, and a few of our officers then became armed.
Okay.
But it was Very, very discreet.
Okay, fair enough. Just out of interest, as security, did you have, I kind of hope you had like a nightstick or something you beat somebody with? Not that you would, but again, they've lied to me if not on TV.
They lied to you, dude.
If you just had a pen and a notebook, I'm really disappointed.
You're going to be really disappointed. I had a pen and a notebook and a cup of coffee.
Nah.
That was it.
Not
That's all I
even,
did.
not even English tea. No, we won't go down that one either.
I had tea sometimes. I even had a cup of soups.
Now, okay, so how long was you a cup of soups? How long was you in that job for, roughly?
About 6 years.
So 6 years, and then you changed jobs. Mm-hmm. Was there any reason? Obviously, you don't need to give personal details. And actually, I don't know the answer. Did you just fancy a change?
I wanted a change.
You wanted a change. Did you change into your current job? Okay, and it was a different role.
Into my current company. But it was a different role.
So again, without going into too much detail, what did you do when you first joined them? Not so much what you do now. We'll sort of leave that bit out, just so we don't upset your boss. I
went round and inspected things.
Okay. Can you say what things?
Fire extinguishers.
So fire extinguishers, and well, that's really all. And
that was pretty much what we did.
And you still work for the company now, but in a different role, which we're not going to go into because you know, don't want to believe it or not, I don't want to offend anyone.
No, and I want to keep my job.
Well, I want him to take you back over there. So you're working remotely at the moment.
Yep.
So, which did you prefer overall, California or Oregon?
Oregon. Weather.
You prefer the weather, which was always wet and cold.
It was wet and cold, but the summers, and they still are blindingly hot. They're hotter than over here. It's ridiculous, and we have a lot of fires, so you have to deal with the bad pollution from that.
I was going to say where you lived again, if my memory serves me. When I came over, it was full of trees. Basically, it was almost. I wouldn't say it was. The streets were basically like in a forest, but you know, it was certainly more wooded than a lot of the UK places.
I mean, the Pacific Northwest literally built America. They cut down from California up. They cut down all the trees that built most of the houses in places in America. It's all wood, so everything bloody burns over there.
It does tend to, yeah. Any culture shocks? I suppose you've been in the US long enough. Was there anything different between, apart from the weather, between California and Oregon that you noticed that was good or bad? Or not?
Not really. I mean, it's just, for me personally, I wasn't looking for changes. I wasn't looking for differences. I'd already got used to driving on the other side of the road, which I...
You mean the wrong side of the road, let's just be clear about that.
On the wrong side of the road.
Yes.
Which is actually easier, better than
How dare you.
driving on the left. It's just more comfortable, and turning right on red just makes sense.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'll give them on that one.
Yeah, and the Americans' complete lack of awareness of what a roundabout is.
I think when I was in New York, they called it a turning circle.
Turning circle, yeah. But yeah, so I was kind of...
Sorry, I just want to say we're not actually dissing the Americans, because actually I love them to bits before I get the complaints, but it is, obviously there's the rivalry, Britain against the US, and we like to tell them that we're correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And vice versa. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's fine. It's just, me personally, I just went with the flow, which is rather, doesn't have a lot of interesting things to say, but I just kind of went with the flow. I didn't try and compare it to the UK, because at the time of living there, up until very recently, that was my home. I chose it to be my home, and I actually loved America.
I was just about to say, actually, and again, without going into too much personal detail, was it your choice to move or not when you moved up to Oregon?
From California to Oregon? No, it wasn't my choice.
Okay, that's fine. Now, one thing I noticed when I came up to Portland to see you, so we went out for breakfast. You wasn't with us, and ordered whatever I ordered, equivalent of an English breakfast. And I asked for fried mushrooms. Hadn't got a clue what I was talking about.
Mm-hmm. So, over there, they don't do full Englishes, so they don't do stuff like that.
No, it was the equivalent of the best I could find.
The equivalent of, which is their pancakes, which are not the same as ours. They're thicker, and they have lots of maple.
We're about the pancakes?
Lots of stuff. Pancakes?
No, the pancakes are thicker. I just want to make that clear. We're not saying Americans are thicker.
No, pancakes are thicker,
okay.
yeah. And you get your bacon, and you get
which is not bacon. It's like greaseproof paper.
It's streaky bacon, people.
Yeah,
it's
not right.
Bacon. And for the Americans, our bacon is not ham.
No.
Anyway. And you get your eggs any way you want, which is one of the big... Okay, so the big cultural change for me was when I went to used to go to a cafe in the UK, and it was many years before I moved to America. You got what you were given. So you asked for a breakfast plate, and you got it with a mug of tea, and you were told to like it. That's what you got. Now that's I'm talking 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, long before I was born.
Right. So yeah, right. And coming over there, I was struck by the amount of choice you have. I mean, it's ridiculous. How do you want your eggs?
Can I just stop you on this whole eggs thing? Because I have no clue. Over easy. What is that?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Have it.
Okay. I mean, sunny side up, I get that. You want the yolk.
I think over easy is where they cook it like a normal egg, but it would be sunny side up, so you'd have a yellow yolk.
Yeah.
And then they flip it over quickly, and so that bit goes white. But I used to have mine basted, which is where they would flip fat onto it to make the top of the yolk.
How we do it, pretty much, as if we're using a frying pan.
Right. And then I kind of got away from that because the medication I'm on makes the grease nauseating. So and then I just wanted to scramble.
I've never understood over easing. I hear it on the films and TVs, and it's like no idea. And this is what I was saying at the beginning about America being so similar because they speak English and everything's quite familiar, but so different.
Yeah, and it is different, and the varieties of bread you can have, white, brown, wheat, rye, sourdough, blah blah blah. Sourdough, by the way, is what you need to get because that's the best bread in the world.
If Warburton's sorry to those on YouTube, I just had to place the batteries in the camera. They were flat. So we're saying bread. So you like sourdough?
Sourdough. Get sourdough. If you can get it over here, I think it's Irish soda bread is the closest, but I might be wrong. You can get sourdough.
You can get sourdough over here, surely.
Yeah,
I mean,
never used to be able to, but you can.
I'm guessing you need a proper baker's rather than the local supermarket.
Yeah. Or you can make it. You can make your own sourdough starter and make your own, because that's just sourdough is the way to go for bread, I'm afraid.
Okay, well there you go. If nothing else on this video and podcast, all you've learnt is that Richard likes sourdough and I haven't got a clue what an over easy egg is.
There you go. There you go.
So really, we could have done that in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So what I think we'll do is, I think we're going to wrap this up for today. Unless you can think of anything. Oh, we didn't cover, just quickly. Can you remember how much you paid rent in Portland? I know.
Portland?
Now, I just want to say for those of you listening, Portland's not the end of his story, but it's the end of the story we're going to share because that's, there's certain things that are his business, not ours. So, as far as your place in Portland, you had, was it a 3-bed?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What we would class as a bungalow?
Yep, it's a ranch house over there.
Okay, and do you remember what you paid?
I think it was around, when we moved out of there, it was around $2,600.
$2,600.
It'd be about
2,300, 2,300 roughly.
Pounds, yeah.
And when did you move out? Roughly how long ago was that? Just to give an idea for those.
2017, 18 time.
It was after 2018. I came to see you in 2018 and you were there.
So it was probably about 2008, late 2018, 19 then.
So around COVID time then, roughly. Okay, so we just wanted to give you an idea of price. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this, and actually there's a few, it sort of hasn't quite gone where I was anticipating, but I think it's been quite good to have a chat, and it'll be good to chat about other things, difference between America and the UK. so that we can put the world to rights that the UK is correct and everyone else is incorrect, because let's just be honest, British people are just belligerent. Even if we're wrong, we're right.
As I used to say to everyone in America, we invented everything.
We did.
That's why we don't have Thanksgiving. We have nothing to be thankful for because we created everything.
Ah, there you go. I mean, you'll never listen to me again. So, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast and video, depending on how you're watching this. So this is my first podcast, so bear with me. For those of you on YouTube, I hope you just enjoyed me waving my arms around like a moron. And I just want to thank you all for watching. And yeah, we'll see you again soon. So on that note,
Bye-bye.
It's goodbye from... Hang on. We're in Britain. We've got to do this properly. For those of you, if you know, you know. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
There you go. That's the two Ronnies, if you're not sure. So thank you very much. Take care.